A pleasure, it's me all at last. And here we are again with films I should have talked about years ago. Zootopia Part 1. What can I say about it? Well, Jennifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman, Idris Elba. Pretty much. That's at least a good start. Oh, but just the idea of a bunny becoming a cop, a sly fox trying to outsmart her and eventually be forced into being her partner for a number of different escapades. Most importantly, a certain case revolving around wolves and berries and such. Yeah, not quite satisfying enough for you? Well, let's just go ahead and do it a little more elaborately. So, the film first starts off with a school play that in fact stars the likes of Judy Hopps, a bunny whom in fact is hoping to get into the big city of Zootopia. Upon growing up and reaching her adult age, she goes into the police academy in Zootopia, hoping to become an officer and enforce the law. Her parents, of course, do give her the best of luck, some parting gifts, and eventually call her up to check on her and how she's doing. It does seem that because of her short stature and a number of other things, they tend to slow her down in a certain way. So you could say the police academy treated her like she was a dead bunny on a stick. Yeah, even the instructor kind of kept on chanting the word dead at her. Being a polar bear, I can find the intimidation factor to be really demoralizing to her. But she is one of her word, and she of course doesn't stop until she passes the training course, eventually getting back to her apartment, thankfully feeling a lot better about herself. This quick chat with her parents on her phone eventually relays that she is gonna be just fine. Once she goes in for her first day of work as an officer, well, alongside many of the others in the room, Chief Bogo, whom is played by Idris Elba, gets to pick out many of the assignments and many of the other animals in the room, including an elephant named Francine. Yeah, I feel like that we've gone a little off the rails with the name Francine, since American Dad had been around for over 10 years at that point. Well, in any case, you would think that Judy would get a similar treatment as all the others, but apparently not. She instead is assigned to be a meter maid, putting tickets on parked cars next to expired meters. And while Chief Bogo thinks that she cannot write 100 tickets, she then doubles down on it. 200 tickets before noon. And sure enough, a little montage gives us just what we're looking for. She keeps true to that very word that she made, writing 201 tickets right before noon. Now that, of course, could be a record, by all means. But like most of the others, she is hoping to see a little more action. There, of course, is an attendant in the room known as Benjamin Clawhauser, and this officer does like his donuts, and is quite a adorable cheetah. Heck, there is even an app on their phones in which that the famous gazelle, played by the one and only Shakira, wouldn't you know, it's apparently becoming viral, sort of like its own meme. It's one of those where you crop your own head and paste it on top of one of Gazelle's assistant backup dancers. Yeah, this actually was a real app that people used back in the day. And I kid you not, it was hilarious. Well, in any case though, while all this stuff on the phone goes around, there eventually does pop up a certain case. A case that Chief Bogo eventually decides to launch an investigation for, to find out who's responsible for something known as the Night Howlers. Well, Judy Hopps decides to pitch in and offer her help, to which that Bogo reluctantly agrees. In spite of what she had done earlier, and in spite of what she is only capable of doing now, she feels like she deserves a real big chance for what's out there in the world, and more importantly, to perhaps get a higher up in her position and in her career as an officer. After scouring for some leads, she eventually finds somebody by the name of Nick Wilde, a fox whom, of course, has a young child of his, a fennec who turns out wants a jumbo pop at a local ice cream vendor. The elephants who work behind the desk and the countertop, they don't give him the jumbo pop that they're looking for. Judy, of course, calls out a lot of stuff, including their failure to wear protective equipment when handling foods, which itself could be a violation of the health board. So they agreed to give Nick Wilde the jumbo pop, but Judy Hopps, as soon as she's preparing to leave, she eventually notices what Nick Wilde is doing with the jumbo pop, melting under the sun and essentially creating what's known as popsicles. Literally, paw-shaped popsicles with the jumbo pop that they bought from the store. Well, the thing is that it's apparently some sort of smug underground business that he's doing. He's essentially selling off the popsicles to locals for at least $1 a pop, quite literally. And then he sells off the sticks to the local construction sites, in which that he calls it redwood. Kind of fraudulent when you think about it. He doesn't exactly give him the full truth about where he got the wood from, and more importantly, what type of wood it is. Just calling it redwood right off the bat. So this kind of business that he's doing, it seems rather illegal and suspicious to Judy. So sometime later, she eventually goes up to Nick and lets him know that after looking through his tax records, turns out that he filed for 0 on his documents. So lying on taxes by any means is quite the offense to make, especially for someone like him, whom had been doing this 24/7, 365 since he was 12 years old. Just think, the fact that he and this son of his, which turns out to be as much of a grown-up gangster of a fennec fox of his own, even driving the van that they were in earlier. Yeah, so as crazy as that might sound, it gets even more strange when you think about the fact that this is somebody whom is seemingly normal, but yet sly. Foxes are known to be rather intelligent creatures, and I do appreciate the kind of attention to detail that they made here. I'm sure that Disney might have actually gotten in touch with real animal experts, analyzing behavior and psychological measures of what a fox is capable of. Why else would they be so accurate with this? Well, in any case, though, the two eventually are forced to hook up and go on the search for hot leads relating to the case. And what they eventually come across are the wolves. Yeah, apparently in Judy's mind, the wolves translated to the night howlers and therefore would serve as a hot lead in information leading to the capture and or apprehension of any suspects involved within the case itself. So what they do is they make their way over to the wolves sanctuary. They even start to howl, believe it or not. I'm not kidding by saying that I've had dogs in my life. And whenever I've had Zootopia play around, especially when the wolves start howling around just like that in that particular scene, they howl with it. That is impressive. I mean, apart from the Gazelle app that I mentioned earlier, the wolves howling scene, it's almost like they were begging to be put all over the web in the form of memes or whatever, which they definitely accomplished that part. I mean, even today one could say that though the internet has fallen, social media and things continue to rise exponentially. And as long as the youth are using these platforms, unlike myself, obviously, they of course will get their entertainment value in the form of memes that are probably a bit strange for some of us, grown adults with lives. So, what I will say though is that up until this very point with the wolves, it's already a lot of entertainment in its own right. But it gets even more impressive. Because Judy and Nick eventually find themselves trapped inside of a prison after accidentally activating the alarms. No doubt because Judy's parents just had to call her phone at the wrong time, causing a search to be made. Thankfully, they make their escape to the toilets because they were small enough to fit through. And once they escape, they have the evidence they need to take down the predatory animals. Yeah, so this even includes Benjamin Clawhauser. Yeah, the mayor of Zootopia is a lion, and he obviously is sent away to prison. But little does Judy know that even though the case is practically closed, there's still a bit of a detail she missed. But because of what happened with Nick Wilde at one point, because he thoroughly disagreed with her choice to apprehend all predators in Zootopia entirely. Because apparently they're all seen as bad people because of the evidence that she turned in. So she inadvertently has made Nick Wilde pretty angry at her. Even having her go to the point where she was going to arm herself with this fox repellent that she was given earlier in the film. So Nick and Judy basically go their separate ways. Judy ends up resigning because of how guilty she felt about everything. And on top of it all, even though she would return to a bit of a life back in her home with her family, and even reuniting with Gideon, someone who has been a bit of a bully for her. Even though things are tied up and certain things are also in shape, she eventually finds a bit of a detail. Berries. Berries that supposedly make Gideon pretty wild. So it occurs to her that night howlers are actually in the form of little berries. Basically things that are put into members of Zootopia to render them wild and aggressive. So she hurries on back to Zootopia, eventually reunites with Nick Wilde, confesses to him that she really is a dumb bunny. If you might remember earlier in the film, there was a carrot pen that also doubled as a recording device, which he apparently kept for himself after Judy resigned. So by playing back this recording on her, it's a little funny, I will say, that Nick is apparently so sly, he really... I mean, this is kind of what happens when some people get angry. They want to hurt someone. Verbally, physically, or whatever. But either way, they're back together, thankfully. And it's important to note that there was also some friends and acquaintances that Nick Wilde has gotten, including a sloth named Dave. He works as a member of the DMV, or Department of Motor Vehicles, in Zootopia. And slowly he types in a license plate that helps them find the hot lead to the wolves, aka the original night howlers that Judy thought about. But ever since the berry thing came around, she has a whole new view about it. Well, here we go. The final stretch here involves eventually getting cornered, and Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde both end up in a hole where Nick is shot by a night howler and ends up turning aggressive. It turns out that it was an assistant of the mayor. She herself, despite being a secretary, was secretly behind the plot of the night howlers all along. And she said that she would hit all of the predators in order to keep this sort of wild instinct going for as long as possible. So, by all means, this is somebody who really turned up a conspiracy. And, well, Nick Wilde apparently fakes it up with Judy Hopps, even her screaming, "Blood, blood." Turns out it was all choreographed, and they thought ahead. Before she shot him with the night howler, the secretary does find out that it's just loaded up with berries from Judy's farm. So she is apprehended after the evidence is recorded by the carrot pen again, and with that, the real truth about what happened in Zootopia, the night howlers and all that, is revealed. And with that in mind, we have a unique duo. They celebrate with a Gazelle concert, and eventually there's an end credits scene in which a speeding car is pulled over, and it's revealed to be none other than Dave the Sloth behind the wheel. Kind of impressive that a slow-moving animal is driving a fast-moving car. And I do kind of like the irony in that whole little joke there. But still, the kind of humor that they got with Dave being his slow, slothy self, I really do like that. I do like this film overall. It's a good Disney piece that I'm sure anybody can get in touch with. But since I saw the second film, I can't quite say it's in any means better than what the original did. It still does a really good effort at giving us a unique sequel. Now, while I've given that film an 8.4 out of 10.1, I'll go ahead and give the first film an 8.8 out of 10.1. So, in a similar regard as to what we've seen with the Sonic the Hedgehog sequels as they would come along every 2 years, in conjunction to the 9 years it took for them to release Zootopia 2, I'm glad that they spent a little extra time working on Zootopia 2. But in any case, though, that's it. But then again, there's plenty of other Disney films I have yet to talk about. So I'm going to spend another 4 more days worth talking about Disney-related films. Probably Pixar ones, in case if I missed any. So, if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure you stay tuned for the other 4 Disney films I'm going to be talking about. Probably Mulan and Big Hero 6 will especially be amongst the 4 that I choose. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side.